Hey there, welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. This is episode number 104, and we're going to discuss season 4 of True Detective Night Country. Nick Pizzolatto's anthology series returns, this season directed and written by Issa López, starring Jodie Foster and Kaylee Reis. Eddie and I are going to discuss this 6-episode season, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the Red River Horror Podcast. Hey, episode 104 of the Red River Horror Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Zakrzewski. Welcome back to the show. Hey there, Ed. I'm joined with Eddie Caiazzo, founder of RedRiverHorror.com. Hey, Ed, how are you?
Joe, doing very well. We came back with a bang, huh?
Sure did. Had a lot of fun with Steve Morrison, who tweeted out his thanks and named me John. I said something. I guess my name's John now, and then he got right back. Just like, I was just talking to someone else named John. I'm like, no, don't worry about it.
No, it was quite good, some good social media traffic, and no, it's always great to be joined by someone local and someone in the Radio Hall of Fame. So it was a good return. Steve can talk the horror movies, and I can just listen. I enjoyed every minute of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's so passionate about it. It really makes the conversation easy. He's a pro. He's a Hall of Famer. So that just makes it easier. And I love his passion for horror movies because it goes from old to new, and that's how I feel about it too. There's some people where I feel he gets stuck in just like, I only like the vintage stuff, or I only like, you pigeonhole yourself for some reason. I don't understand why. Where it's like, oh, well, this era is better than that era. It's like, no, there's good stuff all throughout.
It just like right off the top, like you said, I mean, we are living in a very good time for horror. I mean, there's just creators throwing stuff on every platform all the time. There is no shortage of horror to be consumed right now, Joe. We
sure are. And then even haunted attractions reopening for Valentine's Day, and now also St. Patrick's Day. The Sutton Mill, it's where Mad River and the Grape Room used to be on Main Street, Manioc at Main and Schurz.
Yes, they're doing a St. Patty's Day thing now.
They're doing a one night only for St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
And then also Field of Screams is doing it throughout the weekend. Actually, I think they're starting March 8th.
You know, it was our first show back, and we were talking about a lot of things. So Lincoln Mill Haunted House, that's the one in Manioc we're thinking of that used to be Mad River. And I also want to correct something from the last episode when we were talking about You're Next. The movie we were actually talking about is Talk to Me. That's one of the newest from A24. So I just wanted to clear that up because I was like, huh, and the funny thing is I knew what Steve was talking about. I knew the movie he was talking about. So I'm just like, yeah, it took me a couple watches to get it. I was talking about the movie Talk to Me, and so was he. It's just we kept calling it You're Next, and that's not what it was. So just
I know. I figured that part out after I felt very out of place after bringing up You're Next and him kind of giving me like a stare. So I wish we had that on video, but
I know.
He's like, what? I'm like, I'm talking about the right thing. I'm like, what the So,
and just in the moment, he said, "Hey, pipe down, John." No, I'm just kidding. But something we'd also brought up last week because we are still in the cold weather for a few more days here. We have almost the entirety of the month of March left as where we sit to record. So, want to bring up the big show of the winter, True Detective.
Yes, sir.
Night Country. Wow, Joe. This show caused quite a stir this year, and I have to say, the marketing won me over. I was ready, and when we brought Steve on to talk about winter horror movies, like cold weather horror is how I framed it. True Detective Night Country was kind of the catalyst for that with me. I just kept seeing billboards and was being targeted on YouTube with ads, and I'm just like, the hell with it, man. I am in. I am watching. Let's go.
So season 4 of True Detective, titled Night Country, they used a made-up town in northern Alaska. Ennis is what they called it. But, you know, if you get up as far north as like Nome and like where you get the 30 Days of Night, you're that far up in the Arctic Circle, you know, 30 Days of Night, great one. I love 30 Days a Night. I got to watch that one again.
And that was the vampire one. And if I'm remembering correctly, you liked that because it was very vicious.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. Like, they were creepy and brutal. It was so good.
So this is set in the snow. It feels like we don't get enough horror content created in the snow. So I was all about this from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean,
are you just a quick question before we dive into Night Country proper? Were you a fan of True Detective? Before this, okay. So, you've seen the other seasons.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then
did you not see the first season?
Oh no, I didn't see any of them. I only saw Night Country.
So I'll give you a rundown. So it's like it's got a weird fan base where it has like a love-hate relationship. I don't know what's going on right now where there's like pockets of the internet where it's like they'll go back to something that came out years ago and be like, well, that doesn't hold up. And it's like, how do you know? You weren't watching it with the eyes from when it was made.
Right.
True Detective season 1 has been getting a lot of that where there's like, oh, it's so overrated. I'm like, I don't know about that. I really enjoyed it. And I think Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey were great in it.
They're listed on Night Country as executive producers. So clearly,
I think they got it. They're part of it launching off the ground.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, they star in the first season. Definitely give that a watch. Season 2 has Vince Vaughn and Rachel McAdams in the lead.
Wow. Those are two names from the mid 2000s. Holy crap. Wow.
Yeah, the sad part is that season 2 it's fine, but it's kind of it doesn't hit the same way the first season does.
It's the Bly Manor of the series.
Pretty much, because then you get into season 3, which has, I mess up his name all the time, Mahershala Ali.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic actor.
And he's so good. He's so good in it. But the big difference with Night Country doesn't do it as much as the other True Detectives where it takes place in 2 different times. Oh. So you have like a past and a present. So they did not do that in season 4. Season 4 had a similar approach to most of the seasons, but didn't do the back and forth the same way. Like it made a lot of references, but not a lot of long scenes in the past.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see what you're saying now. Okay, so it made reference to something that happened in the past. More so, I would say, like it didn't seem out of place for me coming on as like a new viewer because it just seemed as if it was like a flashback type thing. And you're saying that the other seasons, it's not a flashback; it's 2 different times. Whereas this season, that was that element of, if you're a True Detective fan, this was the nod to the past when there were.
Yeah, it's how they make the story unfold.
Okay,
it's between like, you know, an old man telling a story, like an older version of themselves. So pretty much how it ended is how a True Detective would normally go, where Jodie Foster's being interrogated. Mm-hmm. That would typically be the start. But they didn't do that. They changed it up, which is great. And it was 2 episodes shorter, but I'm like, I think the first episode was extended. I'm not mistaken. I feel like it was a little longer. HBO does that sometimes. But yeah, so Jodie Foster as Chief Liz Danvers. I don't know what to say. She's just good at what she does, and she's been doing it for a long time. If you got any gripes with Jodie Foster's character just off the bat?
I wasn't a huge fan of the acting as a whole this season. And Joe, I love Jodie Foster. She's in one of my favorite horror movies of all time as you know, Clarice Starling. I am a big Jodie Foster fan. I think she's a fantastic actress. She didn't really sell it for me as this character.
Well, a man tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan to impress her. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that. And now that man is he is out of prison and has a YouTube channel where he records himself playing acoustic songs. That's a true story. I'm not making that up.
No,
I'll send that to you later.
Okay.
Ronald Reagan's attempted assassin
is out of prison.
Since being released, has a YouTube channel where he just plays acoustic guitar.
Wait. All right, hold on. Since detectives have guns and this guy had a gun, let me just take this back for a second. So
sure,
you're familiar with the law. I know to follow the law, but I can't say that I'm familiar with legal things as a whole. So you can attempt to assassinate somebody, and if you're not successful, then you can get out of prison.
So he got off for I think his sentence was cut because of the psychiatric part of it.
That is what a time to be alive.
Yeah, he was doing it to impress Jodie Foster.
Right.
Yeah. And guess what? Jodie Foster's a lesbian, so she's not impressed.
Oh yeah, no. John, I'm John Hinckley Jr.
John Hinckley Jr. That's it.
In 1981 is when he tried the. I gotta read. I'm sorry, but yes, he did. He was doing that to impress Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster was like, she was always just out there, open.
But yeah, I mean,
there's no
child actress and kind of ran with it. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah. But anyway, I love Jodie Foster, and I just didn't. Chief Liz Danvers didn't click with me, man. I couldn't put her into that role.
Yeah, I think the funniest knock at Jodie Foster in Night Country was somebody doing an impression of her with like her dirty talk, where she like showed drunk. Okay, now why don't you go take off your pants? Like,
oh, right.
It's like she didn't know how to be sexy, I guess. But it's like, I think that's more real, because I don't know, like, that's like a TV thing. In real life, you're just like, all right, let's get this over.
No, that's all. To be perfectly honest, all of the sex scenes were pretty uncomfortable, and that's how I felt. So okay, so other people who watched True Detective Night Country felt the same way, at least in the quote unquote sex scenes that Jodie Foster was in.
Yeah, but like the guy she's hooking up with is was that Christopher Eccleston?
Yes.
Eccleston as Captain Ted Connolly. He's also in one of my favorite HBO shows of all time, so always get a pass, which is The Leftovers.
I still haven't watched it. In Night Country, he's not a likable character. He tries to kind of take... He's important in that Danvers, Jodie Foster's character, does realize it's just like, no, F this guy. Like, this guy's from the state police. He's trying to come in and take over the investigation. And this is kind of like Danvers has unfinished business.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like the reason she's like, you know what? F you, bro. You're going to stay over there. You're not going to take over this case. I'm going to do my job. So,
and then another character in there who's been on another one of my favorite HBO shows, John Hawkes, playing Captain Hank Pryor, and I thought he knocked it out of the park. Like, he plays the straight man. He's Kenny Powers' brother in Eastbound and Down, Dustin. So he's plays a straight man to Danny McBride, which is must have been a difficult task, but he was very good in Eastbound and Down. So it was nice to see him playing like a more serious role. I thought he did pretty good, especially because he comes off as like kind of his arc of being like, hey, why don't you stop doing so much police work, to his son? And then eventually kind of being like, hey, I'm kind of a piece of shit.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So that actor, John Hawkins, playing Captain Hank Pryor, I mean, if it was written for you to not like Captain Hank Pryor eventually, and he sold it really, really well.
He did.
I will say that, yes.
Really good. I don't know how much stuff Kaylee Reis has been in, but she's, the number 2 trooper. Evangeline Navarro is our other, I guess you could say, protagonist. in the show. A couple things I had people like griping about is how like she was like fighting people and then beats the shit out of somebody and they're like, there's no way. And it's like, they're not giving the background to the character so much, but the actress themselves was a professional boxer for, 15 years.
Yes.
And is now getting into acting. So it's like,
yes,
I'm pretty sure she could probably fuck us up pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually one of the scenes in the show. I think it was in episode 5 where, she suffers a great loss, her character. And there's these dudes that are just talking stuff that they're not. I think they're they're trying to put themselves at odds with her, and I was like excited to watch her beat their ass.
Really, yeah.
Like it was, and it didn't fully turn out the way it was. But yes, and I actually listened to some of this companion podcast that went along with this show, Joe. So Callie Reis, aside from being a professional boxer, I believe she said during that show that she lives in Philadelphia now.
Oh, no way.
How fitting.
I mean, if that's true, that'd be really cool.
But yes, she could absolutely kick our ass.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of things where people, like I saw some things on Reddit, people complain about that, but I'm like, all right, just do a little background. Like they don't have that, like there's not much time to write into a show, be like, okay, this is why she's so tough.
Right.
I mean, it might have been her look. I think my only problem was that, like, she kept in her cheek piercings, which looked like surgical steel balls. And I think that bothered me because, you're in the night country. It's cold. As someone who had surgical steel in there, no, you don't want that exposed.
No.
Like wind and stuff like that. I mean, if you remember when I had my piercings, I think I wore it, like if it was the winter, I was wearing a beanie. Like there's no way.
That's right.
I was not exposing my ear to like the wind. I learned my lesson really quick.
So just
that kind of like triggered me a little bit.
in the realism category, if we're in a place that's this freaking cold, those piercings are not staying in.
You're not gonna want to have piercings in your face.
Although it was filmed. I mean, now again, this Callie Reis is very tough. She can kick our ass. So I'm saying it was filmed in Iceland, so it was filmed in a cold place. So she left him in, and they filmed. But character wise, wasn't really necessary.
But I don't know how much time, like during that production, how much were they outside? How much were they on a soundstage? How much, like, how long are you actually out there? Doesn't matter. It was just something that gave me made me shudder a little bit, like at the thought. Yeah, it was an interesting show in the way that it, like True Detective does this, where you get this feel that there's going to be a real supernatural element to it, and it's not really confirmed.
That's right. But with this one, there was like kind of like this one kind of I think went there.
Yeah. I don't know how to really break it down so much, but I can tell you this, like the first episode of any HBO show is usually not going to blow you away, but the end of the episode is where you're going to be like, where's this going? Build. And then the last 5 minutes will be like, oh shit. And they nailed that in the very first episode. Cause wasn't it a little weird? Like when it's like, why is he watching TV so loud
right.
in the base? Like,
yes.
Like why? Like who does that?
The Ferris Bueller.
Like I don't even think I could tolerate sitting, like watching TV by myself at that volume. Like it was booming.
Yes.
And it's not like that happened after they disappeared. It happened while he was watching it. But when you first saw the bodies all together, that's when I was just like, okay, I'm in on this show.
That was absolutely a cool, like visual, like a scary horror visual that they pulled off there. So we get to, when we start the show, we're at a base in this fictitious Ennis, Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
It's just turned, and I was trying to write that when I was going through the show. I was trying to write the dates down because this kind of takes place over like the Christmas season, which is strange. So not only is it set in the cold and the snow and at night for however long it stays.
It's during what do they call it? The long night, 30 days.
Okay, so that's 30 days. So this is happening, and like literally, there's Christmas trees, there's Christmas lights. It's during the Christmas season in this very cold, very remote place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we get to the base, the station, this like research station, and
blast of music. But then suddenly, I think, do you even hear anything in here? Like, she's coming. I don't know. It had that vibe. It's just like, what the hell happened? How are they there? And then next thing you know, they're all naked out in the middle of nothing, frozen together.
Right.
And then also the tongue that's found at the site, and that believes to be Annie Kotak, who was killed 6 years prior, which Navarro feels that Jodie Foster knows more than she admitted. It opens up. It's like where they're friendly, but not really trusting.
They both worked that case. So the previous the girl Annie who was killed, that was Danvers and Navarro, and now Danvers is the chief of the Ennis police, and Navarro now works for the state troopers. So like that separated them. Like that was this case of this girl that was killed has driven a wedge in between them. So yeah, they're when they get back together, we'll say, or they meet up because of this. These dudes are in this ice at this station here. Yes, they're skeptical of one another. You could tell like there's some kind of tension there that doesn't unfold right away. We're going to find out what the problem is between these two.
Yeah, and just that to get started is a great formula. That's what hooked me in. I'm like, okay, we got something there's something to work with. And we don't have to break down each episode. No. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. One of the things is that like after they find the bodies where they have like, now I remember why they had like, they drew the thing on them. What's like the symbol? One of them they drew, the injuries on them, like burnt eyes, self-inflicted bite marks, and ruptured eardrums. And I was trying to remember, I'm like, did we see how that happens at the end? Because I don't remember. It's like they referenced those. It was when I was like, before we started recording, I'm like, let me see what I can try and remember. I'm like, Danvers discovers strange injuries. I'm like, well, the way it ends, I don't remember seeing anything where like that would be the case. I mean, ruptured eardrums maybe from a gunshot?
Could be.
Because they do fire a rifle near them. Wow. Burnt eyes. I'm like, who burned their eyes? I'm like, I don't remember that.
I mean, these guys got pretty messed up.
They did. And then the creepier part was when the one was still alive and just started screaming. It's like, yeah.
That was very much like like John Carpenter's The Thing, that moment. That was a like yeah.
And Raymond Clark is not among the frozen corpses. So we got to find Raymond Clark.
Raymond Clark. There's one missing body.
Yeah. So they don't know where he is. I don't even think we gave any credit to the character Peter Pryor.
Is that the kid? Is that Rookie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we got to give that character his due, because that poor guy, he's just trying to do his best, but he has to decide between, his young family and his new job. And
yeah, the struggle is real for him.
I get it. I don't ever feel like he was that bad, but.
And Danvers relies on him a lot.
Well, she's using him. Like, she doesn't have to be like bothering him all this time. Like, she's just a fucking asshole. And I think that's pretty much why that's set, where it's like, there's a couple times where it's like, some of the stuff they're doing could wait. Instead, she's like, no, we're doing it now. Or he could say no. Be like, nah, I can't be with my baby. But I don't think that would do anything to Jodie Foster's character. So it seems like she just has him in such a bad spot. Like she treats him so poorly that he can't say no to her. But he also wants to do well as John. Like, it sucks to be young Peter.
Yeah, no, he has a rough go of it all throughout the show.
He does, and then ultimately has the relationship with his dad, who's telling him to not work so much and not get overly invested. And so the artistic part of Night Country he basically becomes his dad, if you think about it, because wasn't his dad's the one who Hank was part of the cover up. People at the mine or whatever, they all stabbed her to death, and then Hank and Danvers were part of they covered it up.
Okay, so Danvers was part of I didn't realize Danvers was part of the cover up. Huh.
I don't know how much she was like. I'm trying to remember.
Well then
yeah, Raymond Clark, he was the one missing. He's the one who smothered, like, all the scientists took part. That stabbing Annie. Clark's the one who smothered her to death. Claims he didn't cut out. Yeah, he didn't cut out Annie's tongue. He suggests that Deputy Hank did.
Wow.
And then Clark kills himself before he can fry. Yeah.
And Deputy Hank was his dad?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Got it. All right. I'm picking up what you're putting down here. So, was he the one that moves the body as well?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it implies, is that, like, Hank Pryor was the one who got rid of the body. Apparently cut out her tongue. Mm-hmm. So I guess, I don't know what reason. But yeah. And then eventually his son has to dispose of his body.
Yeah, he does.
It seemed like that was something that Hank didn't want Peter to do, but, like, to get that involved into become a corrupt police. But that, I don't know. Then he kind of did. Just wanted to, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was interesting, well written. So you could see where some people were a little upset with acting performances. It's just very dry.
Yeah, and
that's okay.
To be fair, I think I'm the only person that thinks this. Like, I was reading an article from Vox, and they are completely on board with Jodie Foster.
I think Jodie Foster played her character. I think Kaylee Reis was awful.
Yeah,
maybe not awful, but like I don't know. Like, there's like a thing where it doesn't feel natural. Like, it feels like you're trying too hard.
Sure.
What do you want this cat? Like, who is this character? How are they supposed to be? And like, it didn't seem like she could add any other dynamics to it other than being like rough, angry, and tough.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're still a human being.
And
that's not how people act nonstop. Like, they tried.
And they tried. Like, they gave her elements to her story that would, be human. Like, would weigh on you, would emotionally impact you in a big way.
And it's like, it just seemed like the same emotion and reaction to everything.
Right. That's yes.
Do you want to blame Issa López, the director, for that? But no, that's just one man's opinion. I didn't direct it. I didn't write it, but that's just the way I saw it, especially like when she started getting visions, which were also really cool. Like, probably like in the horror elements, those visions were the best part. And the weird is in the Night Country.
No, I mean, that's the thing. So for me, it doesn't take much to get me to enjoy something like this. I clearly love where it was set. Like, that's just a cool.
Oh yeah,
we don't see many stories told in that part of the world, know.
No.
So I really, really enjoyed that. I think I alluded to that last week with The Thing. The old one, the 50s one, is set in the North Pole more so. Mm. It totally captured the tone I was going for, but I really started getting disinterested in the story even as it heated up. Like, so the rookie and Hank, the kid and his dad, it's just like that interested me for a little bit, and then it's just like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this. Danvers.
It's not only did I, sorry to cut you off, it's like not only I feel bad for the character Peter in the show, but then I also felt bad for him just as you're going with like his whole storyline was kind of like, all right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So you got that too, at least with that. Yeah. It was kind of like, all right, I got it. Danvers, I don't know if there was supposed to be some kind of salvation, some kind of reconciliation for this case that was obviously not solved, but whatever. But it didn't. The story didn't make it for me. Like, I just wasn't. By the time they got to the caves, Danvers and Navarro. By the time they got to the caves, it's just like, all right, well, the caves are cool, but I'm kind of done by the caves. You know what I mean? Like, so what I'm trying to say is I was totally sucked in to all the elements surrounding this show. Like, I was excited about it in week 1, week 2, week 3, and then I started to taper off. Like I actually did not watch episode 6 when it was available for the first time. It's the only one that I waited a week. Not waited. I didn't really have the opportunity to watch it, nor did I seek it with the hunger that I did after week 1.
No, it makes sense. But like what you're pointing out is one thing that we talk about a lot on this podcast, which is atmosphere.
Yes.
And they really knocked it out of the park with the atmosphere, just the darkness,
they did.
The snow, the desolation, especially like the parts where they were going near water. I don't know. That gives me a good chill when someone falls into like frozen body of water like that. I'm like, yeah.
And then another scary element to the show was there were a few characters that just walked off into like that was like never to be heard from again, other than in visions and things like that. Just bye. At least I think there were at least 3 characters that offed themselves by just walking out into the night country. Just bye.
They just off they walked.
Pretty creepy stuff. That was cool. I mean, that was not cool. That's suicide's not cool. But I'm saying it was effective. It was like, whoa, all right, what do we
talk about a visual and the atmosphere around it? I mean, just perfect. Mm-hmm. So well done. But it also leads to the question that I'll ask you what you think. So Navarro promises Danvers that she's going to come back, like when they're all wrapping up at the facility in the cave, like right at the end there. But at the end, you don't know if Navarro comes back as a person or as one of those spirit visuals.
Oh, okay.
Who knows? Leave it up to your interpretation.
I would say that character, for as strong and tough, unless the point is that she breaks and comes back as a spirit, I'm going to say that she is a person. She is still Navarro. Because someone like that has gone through so much. Yeah. And I mean, so much.
She's headstrong.
Yeah.
So it's like, she seems like the type that would be like, I'm not like gonna die. But also, maybe that's why she was portrayed as always so like couldn't turn it off. And then eventually when she's around the indigenous women, feels that connection and
yeah. So there's really she was with a guy. Like what I don't know how deep their relationship was, but they were pretty close. Yes, in a place of 30 days of night, you're gonna.
They had a thing going.
You're gonna want the human touch. So they have some physical moments, and that's all right. But I think that she was connected to that one character, and I don't know that I don't know that she would have left. I think if she, that's a tough one. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Walk it up. You're good. That could be some of the stone face, like some of the hard edge, like how her character was Navarro throughout the whole show. That could have been her giving up and just being like, all right, well, these are my people. This is my thing. I'm ready. And said, okay, I'm the spirit now.
Could have been it. Otherwise, I mean, so you are not as hooked into HBO as I am. And if anybody doesn't know that about me, I am just all in on whatever HBO makes. I will watch whatever pilot just because they make good things for the most part. And there's a lot of there's a few shows on there that are sleepers, or if you haven't seen it before, they're worth watching. In the late 90s and early aughts, there's some that, in at least the way you and I work at is like we'd hear something so hyped up that we'd be like, well, then it's stupid.
Yeah.
For example, both you and I with The Sopranos.
Correct. I don't
know if I thought it was stupid. Well, actually, I did think it was stupid, like with like the poster, like people having posters or like Tony Soprano shirts.
I mean, like, you know me. I didn't take to The Sopranos, Joe, until COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was not sold on the Sopranos, Joe. You remember? I actually watched the last episode because I'm like, what the hell? She's like, did you watch anything before? No, just watched the last episode. So I knew about the people thinking their TVs are out. I knew about the fade to black and the journey and all that stuff. And people are like, well, you didn't watch anything before it? So yes,
well, good. I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I wanted to get at. Because HBO is also has these iconic shows, but a lot of them have endings that some people take to that say that it ruined the entire series for them. Now, last week we had that when we were talking with Steve Morrison, mentioned Lost. And I bring that up because they hosted a huge watch party and places hype. And the way Lost ends, they had a very angry crowd to deal with.
That's
at the end of the viewing.
Yeah, no, that was a notorious
with themselves included
on that show. They on Preston and Steve. Yes, I do. Yeah. I didn't watch Lost, but I remember that they did, and I remember that being huge at the time. What the hell happened to that show?
Yeah. I'll give you some other HBO endings before I get to my main point with True Detective Night Country. So they have the Sopranos ending, which really surprised, people started calling their cable providers. It caused a huge thing, that blackout. My wife is currently watching The Sopranos, and I'll watch episodes too, but I have to make sure I'm there for once she reaches the finale because I want to record her reaction because she has no idea how it ends.
Wow.
But so the one theory,
she didn't stumble across. I'm just sorry. In all these years, she didn't stumble across even how it ends.
Nah. Even if she did, she wouldn't remember. She's not she has no reason to. Remember that. I don't think that ever crossed her social circle to be like, did you hear about this?
Sorry, just because it was such a big. In the same way that the Lost finale was universally hated. This Sopranos finale, the reaction to it was just as big at the time. Yeah.
And I feel like Sopranos has gone the way of Seinfeld, where it was kind of hated at the time and has grown to be more appreciated just because Seinfeld did go to jail for being terrible people. That's stupid, but it's actually kind of funny when you really think about it. Right. How else do you end a show about nothing? It's these people are awful. They're going to prison. I don't know if you're watching this current season of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I'm going to try. I know. Look, the advertising is as heavy as it was for Night Country, so it's getting me. If I'll come around, I think
it's the final season. I know you'll probably get mad during the first episode, but it sets up for what looks like is going to be one of the greatest troll jobs in the history of television. I'm 95% certain that he's recreating, building up to recreate the Seinfeld finale for Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Wow.
But anyway, so that's going to be an interesting ending. The Sopranos, I don't know if you knew this, some people, the argument was it's Tony that gets whacked. There's another one. I don't know if it was David Simon who was behind it, but it says no, you did, the audience. You're done. You're out.
Huh.
Which would make a lot of sense. It's that's actually kind of cool.
It is.
Like Tony looks at you and then you're dead. Everything goes black.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one who dies.
I really like that theory a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want to crap on it. So you know me, Joe, once I finally commit, once I finally get in to something, then I'm all in. So whereas Night Country fizzled for me with The Sopranos, at first I had no real interest in it, and then I started watching it during COVID, and then I was hooked. I couldn't believe it. I was like ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I crapped on this show for all these years, literally not knowing just how fantastic the writing, the acting. I mean, those people, the acting in The Sopranos is unbelievable. I don't know if it was you that said this to me or my wife. It's just like, you got to remember, it's just like that's James Gandolfini and Edie Falco. It's not Tony Soprano and Carmela. It's just like, you're right. I didn't think that. It was so real and so good. So anyway, when I go into something like The Sopranos, and I was not a fan, nor did I ever want to watch it, nor did I think I ever would watch it, and I did during COVID, I just kept going further and further. So I, of course, after it ended, I had to see what happened. It's just like, what are the fan theories? So I started watching the YouTube videos. You go down the rabbit hole of the fan theories that happen, but it's David Chase, right? I know his last name's Chase.
Oh yeah, David Chase. I said David Simon before. That's The Wire.
Okay.
Which
is the next one I'm going to watch, because so I know you're running through.
That's one of my favorites of all time. If we talk about TV shows ending, it's the best series finale ever done.
I heard that The Wire is literally the best show ever made. So
well, I am one of those people. I'm a Wire Stepford person.
Yeah.
And I think, you like we'll talk about that offline.
So to wrap my point on The Sopranos, the thing with Mark Chase was that, yes, like Tony did get whacked. The problem he had is he's like, so what? You wanted to see Tony Soprano, this guy you've been following for this long, someone you've enjoyed. You wanted to see him just like go face down into a bowl of linguine and die. Like, you wanted to see his death on screen. He wasn't going to give that to you. He's just like, no, like he was surprised. He was surprised at how annoyed people were that they didn't know if Tony got whacked or not. Just like, why do you want him to? Anyway, so that was so I think that, but I had never heard that before. The audience getting that is really, really good. That's a whole, like, it gave me goosebumps when you said it, because I didn't even think, I'm like, ooh, that's good.
I mean, it's intentionally ambiguous, where it's like, even like Chase's walk back on it, like, you can go down that rabbit hole for fun.
Yes.
If you're ever interested, it's all out there, especially now with a ton of stuff being released for the 25th anniversary of the show.
Right.
But just on to other HBO shows with like endings. So like Game of Thrones was, huge show, most pirated show of all time at the time when it was on air. Its last season and finale gets just raked over immediately after the last episode. There was petitions with a shit ton of signatures begging them to redo the entire season.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But I mean, I can admit it's very rushed to the finish, where it's like all this slow build up, and it's so good. I mean, the first few seasons, like, it's building slowly, and then the ending's just like, okay, get done. Like, everything's done really quick. And that just is what it is. I mean, you could blame, the author for not getting the rest of the books out, but
yeah, that's I do remember famously what is it, George R.R. Martin or whatever his name is. Like, he wasn't writing the stories that they were following at the end. Like, literally the show outpaced it in the race to the finish, right?
Yep.
Is that, I think I remember that. So that, just to keep us on the HBO track, we covered the Wire did conclude perfectly, though, right? Like,
nothing will ever finish as good as The Wire.
Okay. So as far as HBO show goes, The Wire's good. But no, you're right. Sopranos at the time, people were freaking the F out. yes, Game of Thrones, people are freaking the F out. Are there any others that on this HBO lineage that ended really crappily that pissed people off?
True Detective Season 4, Night Country, has now been added to that list of angry people at the finale. So on Reddit, I lurk, I participate, all of the above. And some of the stuff I was reading about this, like some people comparing it, and it's just like, that was so bad. The only thing I can compare it to is the 2016 Girl Busters, which I think is a knock at the 2016 Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, which I still haven't seen. To be fair, I can't hate it if I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet. But.
Yeah, I mean, so I talked about that one before. Yeah. We're going to be talking Ghostbusters. We talk about Cold. How about Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom?
Yep.
Coming. Hell, I'm all in on that. So we will do some deep Ghostbusters talk.
Okay. But Night Country
up to that.
Added to the list of really crappy HBO show endings.
That's what people are going for. And I think the reason why, and I'll tell you why I think that reason is because whereas Game of Thrones had this build up over who the Night King is and all, like there's things that you want to know more about and you never get that satisfaction. And that happens in this. But I think there's why was Navarro getting all these visions? Or what was it? Her sister was also getting them and then she walks off, right?
Yeah.
And it's not really explained what the visions are once you get to the finale where it's just the tribe ladies.
You're right.
Rounding them up with guns. There's nothing supernatural about it. They just hold them hostage and tell them to start walking.
Yep.
That is something that has pissed off the masses. Like, I think there is a big expectation for a huge supernatural event, something more than something so simple.
Right.
Which it caught me off guard, but I'm like, it would go that, I'm like, what, based on like the history of like True Detective and like some other shows, I'm like, it would go like the simple route because it's like, oh, okay. I don't know, but I don't know. How did you feel about the actual finish?
I don't know how anybody could have put that all together. Like I feel like I didn't. The clues, I don't think were enough. That were left all across the show for anyone to come to just like, oh, it's the tribe. It's the and the thing is, Joe. I mean, talk about over the top. Like activism, I guess. Like they were just trying to do too much. They were trying to finish the story. They were trying to tell an environmental impact story. They were trying to tell an indigenous people story. Like they were just trying for way too much. Like it was just and nobody could have put it together. And then and I did listen to that companion podcast and I think the reason for that was that it's just like, oh, you never would have thought this because like that's what it's like bad things happen to indigenous women all the time and it's never heard about, it's never talked about, it's never solved. That's pretty much why the end of the show was the way it was. It's just like now like there's a voice. But, you didn't think about them all throughout the show. It's just like, well, of course I didn't. You didn't. Like,
you led us away from them.
Yeah, it's like they were there. I was aware of them, but I wouldn't have said, oh, okay, that's what they did. Yes, they rounded up this group, this mine. They were mining what was in the ice, had the potential to cure cancer.
Yeah.
But they were polluting the environment, that the natural beauty of Ennis, Alaska, in the process. Like they were, there's protests, there's just so many things were happening, Joe, and I would have never in my life guessed that it was these women. I just wouldn't have,
Yeah, and then even the fact that they all stabbed an indigenous girl to death, and then that murder was covered up, doesn't really get. I mean, it's like, okay, so they got their revenge, but there's just so much in between that you're hoping to get more of, and then you don't. You were like talking to Steve about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, it's building up. I thought there was going to be more, and then there just wasn't. And that's fine because I'm happier with the show having a beginning and an ending rather than leaving that open and then trying to write more seasons just for the sake of making more of it. Whereas other shows that have been on every network ever, where they try and like they outstay their welcome.
Yeah. Okay. No, and I like that take. And the thing is, I had fun in the first few episodes. Like I was in for where it was. I just loved the desolation. Like I was hooked for a little while. Like it's not like I watched the first episode and and was done. I actually pursued the rest of the episodes just at a much slower pace at the end.
Yes. So overall, I think we'll agree the atmosphere was incredible.
Yep.
It did fall a little flat there at the end, but I didn't hate it. I'm not gonna
and it does have a definitive conclusion, which is like
okay, and that's the story. I can live with that. I'm not in the same camp. I think it's hard to tell because like for just years you get like force-fed crap in movies and TV, and someone trying to say that this was like one of those force feeders. It's like, I guess, but it lays out that tone early on, so it's like you could get away from it. Like you don't have to watch the show.
That's true. Yes.
It's not like you're heavily invested. It's like you can figure that part out pretty early on. And if you're really that mad that it was a bunch of ladies taking out a group of men at the end, then they had guns and the boys didn't. So
yeah, it was intriguing enough to keep pressing on, like, and the thing is, it just because I don't think they stuck the landing on a lot of things doesn't mean that they didn't put a lot of effort into trying to craft a good story and good characters. And like there were absolutely moments of this show that I really, really enjoyed.
That's fine with me, but it had me thinking, because like when I read these things, especially in like horror is the best for it, and we can throw in like the ending of True Detective. It's like, oh, these men get overrun by a bunch of women. It's like, again, bunch of women with weapons, with guns, and they didn't have any guns. They're caught off guard. And it's like, oh, well, I would have fought back. And like, how many times when you're watching horror movies where it's like, do we all have this sense of that we would be the hero?
Right.
So would that be a good guess sometime if we could find someone who works in like a psychologist who can like break down the psyche? In reality, if I was one of those dudes and I'm just like making a fucking sandwich and someone comes in and points 15 people are pointing shotguns at me, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm getting naked and walking off in the night country. Actually, I might have let them shoot me right then and there, because I know I'm probably not going to make it through the night naked either way, right? So
no, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't walk off. I'd probably just do it.
You had said that there was something controversial, and was that the Navarro? Like was that not knowing if Navarro was a human or a spirit at that point, or what would you say?
The ending's the controversy.
Oh, just that it was that like.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, nothing too crazy.
Okay,
no, I think if you want to get controversial about Navarro, they address it in the show that she's not like Alaskan indigenous. Mm-hmm. So they cover their butts there. Because that was one thing. I'm like, she doesn't even look like she's like a native Alaskan.
Well, that's another thing.
And they cover that quick.
That's another thing with the with I guess the activism side of it. It kind of annoyed me, because I was listening to the podcast that went with it. Like they really, really tried to keep true, like indigenous people in Alaska. They tried to be as authentic as possible, write a story around these people, shed light on a lot of things. And I get it. I understand. The problem is, though, so you do all these things about the people in Alaska, specifically, very specifically Alaska, and you talk about what a big deal it is and how you like what you were thinking when you wrote this and yada yada yada. But you filmed it in Iceland.
Yeah.
And the reason for filming it in Iceland, they said, well, Alaska didn't have some of the same resources. Like there was pretty much a better filming infrastructure in place in Iceland than there was in Alaska.
A lot cheaper.
Sure, but it's
so HBO has a base in Iceland, like a lot of Game of Thrones was shot there.
Okay.
So they probably utilized what they already had.
So just being practical.
Yeah, and the American dollar versus I forget what Iceland's current, it's still really strong. So it's probably a lot cheaper than doing it in Alaska.
It just annoyed me hearing this whole buildup. Like I'm listening to this podcast and they're explaining. It was just this buildup as to what was trying to be achieved. What we're shedding light on, who these characters are, like why this is important. People native to the land against these miners, the mining company. Like it's just like I get it. Okay, cool. It's just like, but we filmed it in Alaska, or we filmed it in Iceland to because the infrastructure really wasn't in place in Alaska. It wasn't as friendly of an environment to film in that, people who worked there, that there was, everything was set up Hollywood wise in Iceland for them to do this and it wasn't in Alaska. It's like, but I thought we were Alaska here. What are we
trying to help the indigenous Alaskans?
Yes. And I'm sure again, there's a lot of activism surrounding this show. So it's shedding light on a lot of things. I know a lot of money's going to, good causes. So anyway,
so that's all. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that Alaskans do receive money from oil and mining. They get a they get dividends if you live there. So
welcome to Alaska. Cool. Here's $1,000. It's about time. Oh, that was the Simpsons movie. I just love that.
It was.
Wait, how come? So yeah, we get through the controversy. We get through. And I'm sorry, I wanted to like this show a lot more, but we got to get to our boat ratings, Joe. And it's Red River Horror, so there are no halves. What you got?
I know that's the challenging part, is because it's like it really is a halfer, because it's not a 2 and it's not a 3, and that's where I'm struggling on. I got to flip a coin on where to go. It's not a 4 or a 5.
If you're between 2 and 3, which is exactly where I am, which is surprising to me, I thought you'd be a little higher. I'm between 2 and 3. So is it good? Are you giving it a 3 and saying, you know what, it came through, it pulled through for me, and I would watch it again. I liked it. I enjoyed my time with it enough so to say that no, it didn't tank, and I'm giving it a 3.
I'll break it down this way. So I'll break it down in sense of Red River mixed with the 4 seasons of True Detective.
Okay.
So seasons 1 and 3 of True Detective, I would give a 4 boat on each one.
Wow. All right.
And then season 2, we've dropped that down to, it might be a 1 boater.
Season 2 was that bad?
It's not great. It's not like, maybe I'll rewatch it just to give it another chance, but it may be because coming off the first one, which I thought was really good, but apparently is not good anymore.
Huh. Oh, yeah.
People were like, oh, it's just McConaughey and Harrelson just overacting. And I'm like, okay.
Right.
Well, it's just talking like a play or but a TV show.
Yeah.
Anyway. So that's where I think I got to lay this. I got to give it a 3 out of 5 boats. And you know what? What pushes it there is the atmosphere.
All right.
The atmosphere, and there are legit jump scares. There's some really creepy shit going from the frozen bodies to the screams, the supernatural, like the visions. The thing that hurts is that you wish you understood more. I think overall, probably a 3 out of 5. Because I think if I went back and watched it again, I'd still like it.
And that's
why it's 3.
All right, 3 out of 5 boats, and I think I made it there. I think I made it to 3 because I do have to watch it again. This world we live in, there are a lot of distractions. Got kids and houses and jobs and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
That's the second yada, yada if you're counting, by the way, because you brought up the So I was actually doing that on purpose. I wasn't just trying to kill time. But but I think I can get to a 3 with True Detective North Country. I think that you're right. The atmosphere really pulled me in. You don't find many stories told in that part of the world, and you don't really get to see that kind of beauty, to be perfectly honest. That often, it's you see a lot of things on a soundstage. You see a lot of CGI effects.
Oh, that's right. We didn't even touch that. So they got shit on a lot for some of the CGI.
The animals, the wolf, that.
I really don't care about that.
No.
That doesn't bother me at all.
It bothered me just because the one wolf, I think it looked so stupid, but. Yeah. But anyway, like there aren't many tales told from that part of the world in entertainment. So it was enough for me to get to a 3. The Junior and the dad story that was a little messed up. Navarro doesn't really have. I'm glad that Navarro gets closure at the end. Mm-hmm. Because the Annie story. Yeah, no, I can get to a 3. I can get to a 3 out of 5 votes.
Yeah, it's a solid story. It just has all that build that just leaves you. I'm like, oh, all right, so it's over. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, well, all right, see you next time. So, but yeah, and speaking of see you next time, I guess we'll call it a day. Come check us out at redriverhorror.com. Download us, stream us on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Hopefully we'll have that video up soon. Mm-hmm. We tried last time, but I've been your host, Joe Zakrzewski. This has been the Red River Horror Podcast, episode number 104, talking True Detective Night Country, season 4 of True Detective Night Country. See, we're getting tired. It's a late recording. Eddie, what do you got?
No, I was actually looking up to make sure it was Night Country and not North Country. If I said North Country at any point in this podcast episode, we'll have to put that in the corrections in the next one. All right, sorry.
North Country for old ladies. That's what it should be called.
Oh man, no, but it was fun. I'll do it again.
Sure was.
Next winter. I'm going to do it again. We'll see.
Yeah, let's do it. Throw on an episode there.
Yep.
See how it goes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be back, Joe.
Yes, sir.
Good to be back. Thanks to Steve, our guest last week. And thanks to any guest that's going to join us this year. I think we have a good roster, and we will have that video up and rolling.
We do.
And that's all I got, Joe.
Cool beans. So remember, check us out on social media. That's at Red River Horror. And check out Eddie's abandoned videos, those reels, those shorts that are popping up. And remember to keep traveling those channels of fear.